Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a bit of a thing that's going around at the moment. How much of a thing it is, well, maybe we'll do a bit of a dive into it and see where it goes. But it's called quiet firing or quiet quitting, and it's sort of described, and I'll paraphrase a number of articles that I've sort of read on it, but it's described as where you've quiet quitting, say, as the first example, is where someone is as they see it, ill-treated at work, so they decide to do the absolute minimum amount of work and just sort of pay back, if you like, to the company. Well, you're not treating me in the way I want to be treated, so I'll get back at you by doing as little work as possible and being as uncooperative and difficult as possible. On the other side, quiet firing is where the boss or bosses kind of don't really want you around anymore for whatever the reason, so they stop including you in the most important meetings and don't keep you in the loop on events, and they'll maybe they'll go out for some after work drinks or something, but not tell you that it's happening, or just really shunning you and excommunicating you, I guess, from banishing you from the inner sanctum. So those are the two sort of the quiet quitting, where you don't actually leave the job, you just sort of don't do anything, and quiet firing, whereas they don't fire you, they just make you feel that you're not included and not wanted. So now, this is far more nuanced than it appears on the surface. And if you've been around for long enough, you've probably experienced this for some of the time, or some time in your life or work life. But it's the way it's depicted in the online discussion. It's something done by evil white men against black lesbian women or something like that. It's put very much along racial lines and gender lines. So it follows those fault lines that the globalists are desperately pushing to divide Western society on race and gender. But it's of course far more nuanced than that. I've experienced it myself, but have also, if you're in a difficult situation where an employee that's really unfireable, you cannot fire them for incompetence. They're an affirmative action hire, they're a lesbian or they're black or something like that, or they're activist, and you really just can't fire them. But they're very disruptive on the inner sanctum. So somehow this person that you can't really fire, you have to, unless you pay them out big bucks, the person you can't really fire is also disruptive and holding up other things. So you don't want to include them. And so you try and keep them as far as you can at arm's length. Now, you can do sort of sideways demotions and get them to move into another area where they can't be disruptive and so on. But it's quite a balancing act, and they very quickly suss what's going on, or at least have some awareness of it. And these professional victim class people, they're quite skilled at finding ways of getting back at you personally or the company. And typically they're part of activist organizations that give them advice on what to do and how to go about it. So an example was not in an area I was involved in, was a transgender person, a man transitioning to a woman, and he decided that he wasn't going to do any work, and kind of dared the company to fire him, and they were too scared and wouldn't do it. No one wanted to tell him what to do or give him any work to do, because he would find some fault with them. Whatever instruction he was given, he would claim that he was being discriminated against, and so on. What he really wanted was a big payout. I'll go away if you give me enough money. Otherwise, I'm going to stay here and make life difficult for you and everyone else around you. So it's very hard there. But he insisted on that he had to be on the inner sanctum and come to the meetings, and then at the meetings would accuse everyone of being against him and acting in a prejudicial manner and so on. So people were just too scared to go to meetings. It was that sort of situation, which the affirmative action and very woke sort of quotas type environment has created. That sort of woke hiring and quota hiring has inflicted and forced that into what otherwise would be commercial organizations, and so no one really knows what to do about this, and it ends up some of these people get quite decent payouts to just go away, and they can claim discrimination at any tick of the clock off, really for any reason, given the victim level on the totem pole they're at. I also had a woman that was employed. This is while I was overseas, and it wasn't a particularly senior role or anything. So the HR department just went ahead and gave her the job without really doing any checking it. And it later turned out she was a rabid activist who'd managed to get payouts from numerous employers by, in fact, she was a serial sort of shakedown artist, getting lots of money from different employers by claiming that she was being discriminated against and so on. And she had a pattern of joining companies that had a majority straight white male sort of work, and then accusing all of being, racist, misogynists and so on. So it was, once this was realised, it was very difficult to get rid of it. But she wanted to attend meetings and would insist that she had to be at meetings, and that if the meetings that she wanted at the frequency she wanted weren't held, then everyone was a misogynist and was against her, and she was going to take it to court and this sort of stuff. And it was, of course, a very delicate balancing act. And she was also an outrageous sort of flirt who if I was going to the tea room to get a coffee or something like that, and it was a really good coffee machine actually at that place. But and I was sort of the EVP, and she would see me going and would follow me in there, and would do things like trying to brush against me and that sort of stuff. So I had to go out of there and wait till she'd gone, and then come back in. So she was able to have everybody, including me to some extent, running scared of being accused of being a misogynist or a rapist or this or that. So I got to the point where I wouldn't talk to her unless I had a recording device running. It was that like so someone like that, it's very hard to fire them, and so you have to sort of quiet fire them. That's really all you can do. Now I could have fired her and done a payout or run a very high risk of it being dragged through the courts, and again, she was well plugged into the activist network that would have been egging her on to, take him to court, get that damn misogynist, the damn fascist Nazi, he's probably Hitler, and this sort of thing. She tried it on a few of the male employees in the company that they behaved inappropriately. Fortunately, there were enough witnesses to state that nothing of the sort took place, and when presented with that evidence, she would back off. But she nonetheless kept trying it on, always looking for the weak spot, always looking for some little crack or fissure that she could exploit for some sort of. And the benefit, I think, was, could she get a payout? But I think it was as much as anything, it was she just liked spreading mayhem. She was the classic activist, and used to go waving placards and things like that. She was white and I think she's bi rather than straight, but then that's her business. But hugely disruptive and very difficult to get rid of. Fortunately, she was offered a job at an NGO, an activist NGO, and jumped at that and couldn't get out the door quick enough. And so we all breathed a collective sigh of relief. So quiet firing in that sense is something that goes on. And I think because of gender and race quotas and affirmative action hiring, there is a lot of people now, and I meet them almost every day, there's a lot of people now who are simply unqualified to be holding the jobs they've got. In some cases, so unqualified that you wouldn't let them near the job, let alone sit there and pass the time. And some of the mistakes, the errors and the fuck ups and just the general disruption these people cause. But once you've got the black lesbian hide, you won't be able to get rid of them unless you pay them a vast sum of money to go away. And some of these payouts are very substantial. They may only have been there for 6 months, but they can still walk away with $100,000 in their back pockets by threatening to play the race or gender or sexuality card. So those are the sort of people that you would quiet fire. I'm just thinking of another one here again, another activist, very chip on shoulder woman who, and this is at sort of the Monday morning meeting, and when anyone else spoke in around, well, mostly men, when anyone else spoke, she would always jump in and shout over the top of them, accuse them of some terrible misogynistic type sin, and never with evidence. It was just hurling accusations and so on, which again, given the activist sort of areas that she moved and grooved in, that would have been the same sort of behaviour where they have their little rant sort of gatherings where they accuse all white people of being Hitler and that sort of thing. She's one of those, and so and some of the men there, in fact nearly all of them, just bent over backwards, double backwards to try and accommodate her, and would apologise for things they hadn't done just because she was accusing them of something. And they would talk about, well, we're doing da-da-da-da-da. Oh, yeah, well, that's just what a misogynist would do, those sort of things. She was that disruptive. And so, I asked her a number of times that could she, did she mind waiting until her colleagues had finished? Oh, it's just the sort of thing a misogynist would say. And oh, fuck. And so I took the step of firing her. I didn't do the quiet firing. No, you're out. And fortunately, there was enough evidence and enough witnesses and enough warnings and things like that could be done. And she had to go to threaten a shakedown, but didn't get anywhere. But that was someone absolute double, triple dead to rights, being disruptive and manifestly so. So it didn't really need to do the quiet. Well, the quiet firing thing happened a bit, trying to say, well, if you're going to be that disruptive and that it stirs you up that much, why come to the meetings if it upsets you so much? Why not just not come? And so, but no, I want to come to the meeting. I want to get upset and I want to accuse you people of all being Hitler. And so that was her sort of shtick. Now on the reverse side, I've been around for a bit, and I've had bosses that have, again, this comes back, I suppose, to the affirmative action thing. If you're reporting to a boss who's an affirmative action, woke hire, who's manifestly unqualified, then they're going to feel very insecure having a much more qualified person, next to them, working alongside them, or reporting directly to them. So, you've got really a choice there. So what must I do to not make this person feel insecure? And then, you end up not contributing opinions. You watch them doing things, oh, that's not going to end well, but you don't say anything because you don't want to upset them. And you end up sort of restraining your utterances and your comments. And at meetings you say, yeah, that's good, boss. Yeah, sure, boss. And you just go through that. Simply to like at the time, I think it's the time. I had a big mortgage, school fees and car payments, all sorts of things. So it's not, why sort of run the risk of being thrown overboard when just by shutting up and slowing down and being quiet, then you don't upset the insecure insecure boss. So that's probably I think in the real world it's sort of a quiet quitting effect, or has that effect. But it's not because somebody doesn't want to do any work or can't be bothered. It's because the insecurity of the unqualified person above them means they just have to slow it down. And that's more a reality thing. Is it quiet quitting? I guess it is in a sort of a way, but it's real politic. It's dealing with the real world that's in front of you. And this is part of what makes quiet quitting, I think, more nuanced than simply someone deciding I'm going to do sweet fuck all. It's not quite that way. There are those who do that. I've had people certainly come to my office and say, look, I want to progress in the company, and I want to get a promotion, and I want pay rises, and I want this, and I want that. And as soon as you say, all right, well, fine, I'm happy to look at those things. Let's have a look at your performance. What have you achieved? What are you intending to achieve? What are you doing to make it happen? And in their attitude, often, in fact, most of the time, I'd say, is, no, I don't do anything. You just have to fucking give it to me because I'm entitled. And that doesn't cut any ice with me. And no, you got to produce or contribute or create something. Now, maybe someone works hard, maybe they're very efficient in what they do, maybe they have special knowledge that's it could be product knowledge, technical knowledge, whatever, that's helpful to the company. Maybe they're good at their job in ways of, like a sales representative that pulls a lot of business in the door, things like that, or an R&D engineer that comes up with a lot of bright ideas. And those people deserve promotions and pay rises and benefits. But there are plenty of people, most people, that really contribute very little or nothing. They're just passengers, but they think, gee, wouldn't it be nice if my salary was double what it is so I could have all those consumer goods? Well, sure, I guess we all think that way, but what are you going to do to justify that pay rise or that promotion? And most of them have got nothing to say. They kind of stare at you, well, why don't you just give it to me anyway? And in that case, when they don't get it, they then go into the quiet quitting sort of mode where they think, okay, well, if you're not going to do what I want, screw you. And sometimes you have to say, hey, that's not the right attitude. You haven't been denied something that was legitimately yours. You're not being sort of shunted to the sidelines because someone's got a problem with you. You've got the problem. So it's not. It's so again, more nuanced than just simply a quiet quitting or a quiet firing thing. If somebody refuses to contribute and refuses to sort of cooperate in any reasonable way, then they would sort of bring the quiet firing upon themselves, but at least to an extent. But my sort of way of approaching that would be, well, hey, you've got a job to do. Look, work hard, do a good job. The promotions and the pay rises will come. Sometimes, but I've come across people that sort of work reasonably hard. You wouldn't call them lazy or incompetent necessarily, but they've got diabolically bad attitudes. So they're always, harassing and complaining and sticking it up their fellow workers, their colleagues, and they create a bad feeling. And so really, there's sort of a collective pall hangs over them where no one really wants them at the meetings because they're just too snotty and difficult, even though they may be reasonable workers. And in that case, that involves some counselling, maybe as a word, saying, hey, you've got to do something about your attitude. Your work's fine, no complaints there, but you've got to work on that attitude. And here are some suggestions. But I find most companies don't do that now. They're so frightened of being accused of being racist or whatever that they don't offer that sort of advice, which certainly years ago you would get. Your bosses would feel it incumbent on them to give you that sort of advice and guidance. But I don't think it happens now. It's handballed to HR that again see the world through ideological glasses, so they tend not to do it either. But it's something that I think is necessary. But that's my take on quiet quitting, quiet firing. I mean, it's quite a big subject. Could probably go on for a while, but that'll do for now. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.